Okay, so we have just knitted the turned heel, and so we're going back across to here. We've got 18 stitches. The yarn is at this side, so something that people often do accidentally is start to pick up stitches down here, which means you'll be going the wrong way round. So if you knit, your stitches are going to turn out as pearls, which would be sad. So we're going to just knit normally back across here. But the other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to knit 9, and I'm going to put the marker in that we took out back here it would have been. I'm going to place that in the middle of this row of 18 stitches, because that is now the beginning of your round. It is now shifted 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's now shifted to the center of the heel. So there's your new beginning of the round. Okay, so there we go, and you'll see we have 2 stitch markers there, which will become necessary in a moment. Okay, so we're going to pick up, the way this particular pattern works is we're going to pick up 17 stitches down here plus an extra one, which will go on to here to keep the rib pattern, but that will become clear in a moment. So you can see down the edge here we've got these extra big loops, which is where we've slipped the stitches. Now that's your guide for picking up the stitches. So the first one I'm going to do is that great big one there. So get your double pointer, and you can see you've got the 2 legs of the stitch here, the 2 V. So you put your needle between the 2, get your yarn from here, and this first one, make sure you do this nice and tight once it's in. Pull it round as if you were knitting that, and you've got a stitch on there. Now that's going to give quite a big gap actually, so I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to do this one instead. It's not necessarily an exact science. If you're trying to do very matching socks, it makes sense to get the same number on each side of the sock, but equally it's not the end of the world. I'm going to miss that one out because that's going to give me a great big hole. I'm going to go next to that, go straight to that one, which I wouldn't normally do, but hey. So just pick that one up there. So if I show you this next grey one, see you've got 2 there. So put your needle through, try not to catch anything else, wrap it around as if you were knitting, pull it through, and you've got another stitch on the needle. And so you see where you've got these nice big clearly defined slit stitches, it leads you to know where to pick them up. This isn't crochet, you know, not crochet where you don't know where to stick your hook. Don't let Pam hear me say that. So see what we're doing here is we're picking up stitches at right angles to this, so the stitches will look like they're going that way, but because we're then going to do decreases, they'll all end up lining up together eventually. Trust me. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. This is another reason why it's good to do this bit on double pointed needles, because you've just got a little bit more maneuverability. Some people knit socks on these, which I think is insane, because the number of times you can lose stitches off either end, and I mean I can lose stitches at the best of times, but why would I make life more difficult for myself? 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So 17, which are the ones for down here. Let me just check that again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. So these are the ones that are going to form the body of the sock. I'm now going to pick up one final one here. which will just help make sure there isn't a hole here. Although often you do get a hole, and again, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to pick it up onto there, and then I'm going to immediately take the other end of the circular needle, and then I'm going to pick that up onto there, because we're now going to start moving towards putting everything back on the circular needle. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to put that last one on the circular needle. So these two can just sit there for a while, and then so that is effectively going to be a purl stitch the next round. So then we go back to doing the 3 knits, 1 purl across here. Now you can see that often when you've got self-striping or self-patterning yarns, that this part can mess up the pattern. Depends on the pattern of the yarn, how annoying that is. So with something like this where it's fairly random anyway, it's going to have a little bit of this cream across the middle there, which could be quite annoying. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to carry on. Let's just say I might pull that out and move the yarn along till it gets back to the blue bit for when I start there, but don't worry about that. So we're just going to go across here. So from now on, this part across here is the only bit where you'll do the 3x1 rip, because the sole is all in knit, because it's more comfortable. So that it's also a nice way to differentiate between the upper and the lower part of the sock, which you need to remember because of where the decreases go. So we've knitted across the rib section, so that's picked that bit back up into the sock. Now I'm going to place a marker here, because this is going to help us identify, I can't get this to go on the needle obviously, it's help us to identify in the next and subsequent rounds where the decreases will go. So on this side I've got a purl stitch there, so I don't need to pick up an extra one to go on here. So I'm just going to pick up 17. Get out of the way. So this is a bit messy. I'm just going to pick up 17 up here. Where's that marker gone? See, marker's jumped off. Never work with children or animals, as I said in the last one. 1, 2. So 2, 3, 4, 5. As we get up towards these paler stitches, you'll be able to see quite clearly where the slip stitch is and where you would put your needle. This will be a little bit clearer on your first sock because everything's going to be that much bigger. So look, you see there, you can see there's the stitch there. So we're just going to put the needle through and pick up like that. I just want to check 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14. The number of stitches you pick up will depend on the number of rows you did on your slip stitch heel. So on the 22 stitch heel, you probably didn't do 32 rows, so you're probably not going to pick up 17. Sometimes it's a judgment call. 17. Now there's a bit of a gap there, but to be honest, if I pull this nice and tight, it's not going to make any difference. The place you're most likely to get a hole is here and here. This will just pull together quite nicely. So now we knit back across to the beginning of the round, and we can get rid of one of the double point needles. This bit is always a little bit of a relief. It's almost like you've been having your knitting on wind chimes or something very unstable, and then you get it all back onto your circular needle and it feels like it's been sort of reconstituted, which again is why I can't understand how anyone would want to knit a whole sock with 4 or 5 of those. Right, so we've knitted back across there. We've got a nice looking little heel there. So we're going to go back up here, because we've just picked these up. We're going to knit into the back of them, which twists them. As you can see, they're just a bit of a loop over there. So you knit into the back of everything you've picked up. And we're going to do our first decreases on this round. So we knit up this side. Until you get to the last 3. So 4 decreases on the gusset. You always decrease the last 2 stitches before the last one, so to speak. So there's 4, 1, 3. So we've got 3 stitches on there. We're going to knit these 2 together. Now on the first row, we're going to knit them together through the back loop because we're twisting the stitches. But on subsequent decreases, you'll just knit them together normally, which means it won't be as awkward as that. So that's your first decrease, and then there's your last gusset stitch there. Okay, get rid of the second double pointed needle, and I can put my other marker in now, because if I'd put it in before, it would have been between 2 double pointed needles and it would have so fallen off. So we're back now to the rib stitch. So that's the one we picked up before. I'm going to purl into the back of that just to make sure it's twisted, and that's now a purl stitch for that rib section. So let's just get across the rib, and we'll go down the other side. And you see there's just a weird line of the cream colour here, so I probably will go back and remove that, because what you can do is just basically stop knitting there, go through the yarn till you get to the end of this cream colour, and then just start knitting with the next bit. Cut those ends off and sew them in at the end, which is slightly annoying but not the end of the world. And a lot of people will do socks with contrast heels and toes and cuffs, and they aren't sewing in ends all over the place anyway, which strikes me as making trouble for yourself. Although sometimes they do look nice with the contrast, and it means you don't have the same problem with messing up the stripes quite as much with putting the heel in. Although you still do it to a certain extent, you know. There are the heels that you can do which don't mess that up as much, but they're so bloody fiddly. And this, once you get your head round this is a standard sock. You can then do the body in other decorative stitches, which is like some of the ones I've done, where this is the basic sock that I knit every time. Sometimes you need to alter the stitch count to fit in with what the lace repeat is or whatever, but this is your basic go-to sock. So, okay, so we've got across the rib, and then we're going to knit into the back of these stitches. So the first one I'll knit into the back. Now the second one, the second decrease, is a slip slip knit, and so if you did that normally you wouldn't be twisting it. So just for the very first round, I take both stitches off, twist them and put them back as it is. I'm going to do that again so you can see what I've done. So that's how they were normally. I'm going to take them off the needle and put this needle in the back so it twists them. I said I'm going to cock that one up, I thought. So put it through that way, just to turn it round on the needle effectively. Turn it round, and then I'm going I'm going to then knit them through the back loop, but only on the first round. So then the subsequent decreases, you will do a normal slip stitch knit, which will be you knit 1 stitch after the marker and then decrease there. So you do that every other round until you are down to 16 stitches between there and there for this sock. Again, we'll have to talk about the numbers for your sock because it'll be less than that. Where you've done decreases with the slip stitch knit on the non-decrease round, it can make it a little bit neater if you knit into the back of that stitch, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. Have I been knitting into the back of those or not? I don't know. Probably. Because they don't look, they present themselves as weird, quite flappy stitches. And anyway, I'm going to unravel this to get rid of that annoying bit there. But there we go. That's picking up stitches. Oh, we go back here. We should have 9 across here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So that's the last of the picked up ones. And then we just go back into knitting. So basically, from now on, your sock is rib between those 2 markers and knit all the rest of the time with decreases every other row till you're down to the right level. And you can see here on the inside you've got this nice neat edge where you've picked up all the slip stitches. So there you go. That's picking up stitches for your heel. So now you can get on with that bit.